Okay, so I'll start with some more general questions and then I'll move to more specific questions to education. And I'll start by asking you how you think that civil engineering contributes to society.
I think if there is any branch of engineering which contributes to the society maximally, like to the highest degree possible, it has to be civil engineering, because it shapes civilizations. That's why it's called civil engineering. I don't think there is any civil engineering aspect which is delinked from the society. Everything that civil engineers do are for the people.
And do you think that also, apart from this contribution to society, civil engineering can also have a negative impacts?
Unfortunately, yes. Because see, we have there is always a conflict between two objectives. Number one, the economic development, that's on the one hand, and the number two is environmental and ecological sustainability. These two most often can be contradicting each other. Like, for example, I'm from India, and because we are a poor country, it is not unnatural for us to be aiming for economic development. However, that development might come at the cost of climate change or at the cost of environmental pollution, because these two are conflicting. We have to strike a balance always. And therefore, it is, unfortunately, economic development can come with the environmental cost. So yes, some of the civil engineering structures can in fact have negative effects on the society. And I can give you one example. So for example, for the longest time, the dams that used to be constructed by civil engineers, they were meant to sustain people. They were meant to sustain agriculture. They were meant to control flood. They were meant to, provide water bodies for recreation. They were meant to generate hydropower. For example, the state of California in the United States has more than 100 dams which have sustained their water resources. Otherwise, that state was a desert, right? So the society won't survive without those projects. But you see, recently because those dams are old and worn out, some of them are undergoing collapse. Some of the dams flood a lot of areas. So the areas that are inundated, those people have to be displaced from their native regions. So that's a negative impact on the society. Then there is environmental negative effects also. There are changes in the microclimate that happens. There are fish species which may not survive if you create a dam right in the middle of the river, and so on. So these are unfortunately negative effects. I think what is needed right now is research, and coming out of that research are aspects which will help us to balance between these objectives.
In balancing these economic, environmental, and social objectives that you were mentioning, do you think it's the civil engineers that need to try to find this balance in projects, or are other disciplines?
Civil engineers are definitely one important entity which should be involved in this process. However, I think there are other entities also involved, particularly decision makers and lawmakers, politicians, governors of states, ministers, the ones who decide and give a final go that this is the place where a dam is going to be built. Those are the people. All the water resources managers, they are also responsible for such balancing. And of course, this has to be, because this problem is so interdisciplinary, and all of us all this while have been working in silos. Like, for example, I'm a civil engineer, but I have very little knowledge of sociology. how people migrate from one place to another. I don't know these aspects because all of this is so interdisciplinary and it requires new insights. I think it also involves social scientists, economists, statisticians, civil engineers, water managers, politicians, and even companies. Like, for example, most of the cities like Paris or Melbourne or any other big cities in the developed countries, their water is managed by private companies. So those companies must also be involved.
You spoke about civil engineers being in silos and the need for interdisciplinarity. Why do you think that the profession, the discipline has become so, as you said, in a silo and not being so interdisciplinary?
I think traditionally civil engineering was taught in silos. Now the situation is becoming a little better in the sense that research is becoming more interdisciplinary. Okay. So now people have, like, for example, I work on hydrology, and although hydrology is basically assessing what happens to all the water after it falls to the earth's surface as rain, right? So all the water resources are, you need to understand the science of hydrology to manage your water resources. Now, till a few years ago, the social aspects were not being considered, and it probably was not intentional. That's how science developed. However, now, like in the past few years, there have been a lot more emphasis on socio-hydrology. So now is the time when it is actually becoming a little better than what it was, let's say, 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
Yes. You were talking about the participation of social scientists, for instance. Do you have experience in such interdisciplinary teams?
Yes, absolutely. So in IIT Bombay, we have a center which is called the Interdisciplinary Program in Climate Studies. You can refer to their webpage also.
Okay.
So we have a very short, we have a 5-minute video. If you want, I can share the link with you also. We have a video in YouTube. Yeah. So, like civil engineering is a discipline here in IIT Bombay. Climate studies is also another discipline, but it is totally interdisciplinary in nature, which means that it doesn't have any core faculty. It doesn't have any faculty member who works only in climate studies. It has faculty members who are working in civil engineering, but related to climate studies, in mechanical engineering related to climate studies, and so on. And how we have ensured interdisciplinary in this program is every PhD student that is hired in this program is guided by 2 faculty members, and the 2 of them have to come from different departments, different schools. So let's say I am from civil engineering, I am co-guiding someone who's being guided, whose main guide is from chemical engineering, whose main guide may be from the School of Management Studies or social sciences or mechanical engineering. So that's how we have an entire PhD program dedicated to ensure that interdisciplinarity in teams.
What difficulties, have you found any difficulties in working in these interdisciplinary teams?
It's very fun. So I mean, tell you what are the advantages of working in interdisciplinary teams. Okay. Diversity, first of all, in any field is necessary for creativity. There is no doubt in that. The more diverse your population is, the more creative it is. You would get different perspectives if, let's say, vis-a-vis the situation when you were working alone in a silo. This is one thing. However, having said that, because of lack of awareness, particularly in India, what happens is our students who go with a PhD in interdisciplinary area, they often face difficulty in getting absorbed in jobs which still are not open to interdisciplinarity, Okay. Like, for example, we have a PhD student who graduated with excellent publications, but when he applied for a job in a particular department, that department says, but you don't have a PhD in mechanical engineering, you have a PhD in climate studies. Are you fit to teach mechanical engineering? That kind of questions get asked.
Okay.
I think slowly it will improve with time.
Mm-hmm. So for the moment, the fact of having an interdisciplinary background maybe seems to have less value than being very specialized in a field, even though it's changing, right?
Yes, in some cases, yes, and particularly from the job perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were talking before about the context of India. What do you think are the main challenges in terms of infrastructure in India right now?
Well, we are a poor country. We have homeless people. We have to build homes and toilets for every single Indian. That's the primary challenge. We have to build roads for better connectivity, and not only build them but also maintain them regularly. So all nation building has not stopped for our country. We are not a developed country. Nation building is still going on. So that primarily is the challenge. However, having said that, we have to also parallelly ensure environmental sustainability, food security, water security, and so on.
In the development of these infrastructures that you were mentioning for the poor, since there's a very big social aspect there, do you think civil engineers should be the ones that include these aspects in their designs?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
However, the implementation of the designs is also the prerogative of governing bodies, Okay. Like, for example, I as a civil engineer can tell you that this is the 100-year floodplain. Because India is such a poor country with such large populations, it is very difficult to ensure that nobody settles in that 100-year floodplain area. It is up to the governing bodies to ensure that there are no people staying there, right?
Okay.
So that is also there.
So somehow the social responsibility is not fully of the civil engineers. Is that what you mean?
Yes, it is. I mean, to a great extent, civil engineers must be aware of the problems that are existing in the societies, but the implementation is not entirely the civil engineer's responsibility.
Okay. Moving to the questions related to education, to civil engineering education, in your institution, what do you think are the main challenges right now in terms of the education in civil engineering?
Right now, I can tell you there are many challenges because of the COVID situation.
Well, yes, that's true. Well, without thinking about the COVID situation.
The primary challenge, we have a very specific problem in IIT Bombay, which is in motivating the students, I have seen a lot of disinterest. There are many causes possible for that disinterest, including the money involved. If you do a job in civil engineering versus if you do a job in financial sector or banking, you may be earning more amount of money there.
Yes.
So it's the students can sometimes tend to get a little demotivated. That is a challenge. Attendance, for example, falls down because people are busy doing internships somewhere or working in some other, gathering experience in other sectors which might help them find a better paying job. So that is a challenge.
Okay.
The other challenge, I would say from a technical perspective, is we have our curriculum is designed in a very tight manner. We for example, some of the labs that I teach come before the concepts have been taught in class. So that's a challenge because there is so much material. Civil engineering is such a vast field and they have only 4 years of the degree program. So it becomes little difficult to fit all the courses in an ideal manner. Sometimes I have to teach the hydraulic jump in a laboratory course where the hydraulic jump concept will be taught to them probably a couple of months after doing that experiment. That is a challenge.
Okay.
Then the third challenge is the lack of opportunity or scope to take all my 120 students to actually go to the field and show them each and every civil engineering structure that I'll be talking about in the class. Let us say I'm teaching how a turbine works to you. How a turbine works in a hydropower plant, let's say I'm teaching that to you. Or I'm teaching you what is a surge tank, how it operates. A surge tank is a huge, massive structure. You cannot build it in the laboratory for demonstrations. So ideally, I should, after I teach them the concept of surge tanks, I should take all of them to an actual field where a surge tank exists and let them experience it firsthand. See it, touch it, and all sorts of to see it with your own eyes is probably the best way to learn a concept.
Yes.
That may not always be possible in our curriculum.
Okay. Sounds a tough task, these 3 challenges. And apart from these challenges, do you think that social aspects should be included in the education of civil engineers?
Absolutely, yes. Big yes. Who are the people for whom you are designing? Where, let's say I have proposed to build a dam at a particular place. Who are the people who will be displaced? Who are the people who will benefit from that dam? Who are the people who would be using the water of that dam? Who are the people who would be using the electricity? Are there conflicts between these societies? Who will be the end users of each specific part of the whole engineering design? That needs to definitely be taught to the students. Unfortunately, and this is true. When I taught the hydraulic engineering course this semester, I had to tell to my class that I wish. So all I did was I told them what is the hydrologic design of the dam, how you can build each part, and what is a spillway, how a dam functions. All these concepts I have taught, but I taught them only from a civil engineering perspective. Maybe if I were a social scientist teaching this concept, I would teach dams as something that displaces people. There's a lot of controversy associated with that topic. And if I were a social scientist, I would have taught it from an entirely different perspective. And I had to tell it to my class that, look, what you are learning in this class is only one side of the story. I wish I knew enough to tell you the other side of the story also. So therefore, I definitely think that social sciences perspective must also come into civil engineering education.
So in your subjects, you don't include the social aspects because you feel that you don't have enough training to teach that?
Yes, that's right.
But have you still considered the option of teaching it yourself, or you just...
I try to read as much as I can from the newspapers, and so let's say if there's a particular example of a dam that I have taken to teach in my class, and if there were some issues associated with the neighboring societies of that particular area, if I'm aware of all of that because of my general knowledge or whatever it is, then I try to tell them. But given the nature of the curriculum also, it is so tight, and we have a particular syllabus, so that's the part that you have to finish no matter what. So there is it in terms of both time as well as expertise, I am limited in teaching the social science perspective.
Whenever you've mentioned this kind of more social topics, did you feel that students were interested about it?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. The professors in your same group, do you think they are also interested in teaching these social aspects?
Some of them maybe, not all of them. I don't think so.
And in your opinion, why do you think some of them might be more interested than others? Because of their knowledge or their personality?
Yes, more to do with the personality, because like I told you, see, in India, from a job perspective, it's still difficult to make it to a specialized area if you have come with a PhD in an interdisciplinary area. So people are still not very open about accepting interdisciplinarity in engineering education to begin with. So they are still very conservative would be the right word.
All right.
Yeah.
In going out from your particular subjects, if these social aspects should be introduced in the program, how do you think this should be done? Through subjects, through the already existing subjects, introducing this topic as more transversal?
Yeah, and that's a good question that you ask, because I think as an institution, IIT Bombay is considering very seriously the incorporation of the social sciences aspect into engineering education. We have been asked to revise our curriculum. How we will do it, it's in a very nascent stage right now, but I think eventually there is a lot of focus, and eventually we are going to incorporate all of this into our curriculum. I'm still not sure about the modalities of it, but in my opinion, I think it would be good to include it as part of every subject that we teach. And it would be good to have it come from an expert in social sciences.
Okay.
So what I mean is, let's say I work on something. I work on hydraulic structures, and there may be a social scientist inside IIT Bombay. We are not even aware of. We don't even have to go outside to look for other people. If we do not have people within IIT Bombay, then we should go out and see if there are experts working on that area. But let's say within IIT Bombay, there is one more person who's working in social sciences sector on vulnerabilities of communities to these hydraulic structures. I think both of us should be co-instructors of those courses.
Okay. And what kind of aspects do you think should be talked about in the subjects? What kind of social aspects?
I'm not sure if I understand that question correctly, because
Sorry. So you said about including social aspects in all the subjects. What kind of aspects do you think?
How the societies will be affected if you build the structure, or its alternatives.
Okay.
Which of the options? So let's say my research is on climate change impacts on water resources. Now let's say I want to mitigate those responses. I want to mitigation is not my area. Sorry, not mitigate, but adapt. I want to adapt to those impacts. Then I have several different options, right? I can go for greening the land with more capability of infiltration so that the area doesn't flood, or I can go for green roofs, which will reduce the runoff. There are n number of options for me. All of these options will have different impacts on people. What those impacts would be, I'm not the right person to judge, because I don't have enough training and experience on that. Maybe someone from social sciences has, and that person's expertise should be brought in there. Okay. So I'm still not sure if I understood and answered your question satisfactorily.
Yes. Well, yes. That's what I wanted to ask you. So yes. Apart from the benefits of including these social aspects, do you think there are also drawbacks into including them in the program?
The drawback would primarily be from time and implementation point of view. What happens when you do not have the right expert at your disposal? That is a challenge.
Okay. You mentioned that the IIT Bombay is trying to make this change, starting. Are there professors or students that are opposing to this change?
Yes, we do not have 100% agreement from all the professors. By and large, everyone has agreed, but what should the credit distribution be like is still being debated. Okay. What percentage of the civil engineering course credits should belong to humanities and social sciences courses is still being debated.
Okay. So there is
I guess I'll tell you why. One reason of the debate is because people believe that humanities and social sciences courses would perhaps be a little less technical and easier for students as compared to the rigor that you would expect from civil engineering education.
Why do you think they might think that the fact that they are supposed to be easier is not a good thing?
I suppose, if it is easy, it's a good thing, that's right. But the point is, then you might want to avoid the essential, not so easy part and replace them with the easy part.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yes, yes. And this change that is occurring, who is taking the leadership in this change? Who has kind of promoted it?
There are deans, there are Senate members of the institute, and also there are the head of the department. So all the head of the departments have been asked to revise the curriculum. There are humanities and social sciences professors also who are a part of the leaders who's trying to bring about this change.
Okay. So has it come because of do you think all the sustainability context, or maybe because these deans are more motivated to change?
I think it's the first one, because I think in general there is more awareness. It's not particularly this dean is more keen towards social sciences. I don't think that's the case.
Okay.
I think in general, because the world is becoming more aware, the other universities are also changing, and they already have changed their curriculum.
Yes.
So I think that the awareness is primarily the reason.
Okay. And among professors of your research group or other research groups in civil engineering, do you usually discuss about these kind of social problems and how we can mitigate them or adapt to it, adapt?
Yes, we do, but not with everyone. Like I already told you, there are certain set of conservative people, but there are also other people who are, especially the younger ones, are more open to interdisciplinarity. So especially when we have discussions within the younger professors, we have a lot more discussion on these topics that come up.
Okay. Do you feel that in some groups they engage more than in others? So for example, I don't know, structures or hydrology, is there like a trend of a group in which there is more professors engaging in these discussions?
I am not very sure of the other groups, but I think you may be right about that. I mean, there may be a possibility of that, because I have seen that there are people in civil engineering who are associated with climate studies or environmental or urban science and engineering sort of centers. And those are the people who are typically more aware of the sustainability issues.
Okay.
As compared to other groups which are not associated with such programs. It primarily also has to be driven by someone's research interest. Let's say if someone's research is only to analyze the earthquake dynamics of a building, then that person is less likely to be aware of environmental sustainability as compared to someone, for example, who's working on renewable materials for construction. So the second person would automatically be more oriented towards including social science aspects.
Okay. All right. Now a bit.
I am limited on time now.
Yes. I was gonna tell you. Let's to sum up. Do you have time for a last question, or we can?
Yeah, we can. I have 5 minutes more, so you can ask me one more question. Just one more request, Irene.
Yes.
If you have anywhere recorded this interview, can you also share with me? I just want to probably share it with my students or something.
Yes, sure, no problem. I will send it to you once the meeting finishes.
Sure, okay. And I'll also share with you the link of that climate studies program here.
Okay.
Interdisciplinary.
Yes, it will be interesting to look at it. Well, just it was just a summing up question to see if you had any final remark, or otherwise how you see, if you really see the civil engineering education changing in the following years.
So actually, if you go to my webpage, there is a video where I speak about what motivated me to take up this subject, and what is hydraulics, and what is hydraulic engineering, what is hydrology, and so on. There was a question, and those questions were asked by our students, right?
Yes.
The students were the one who made that video. They asked me one question about what has changed between then and now, sort of a thing. Yes. And what change do you expect in future? And I think I had answered that question about 3 years back, and told them that if there is anything which is going to like broadly change in civil engineering education, it will be the inclusion of interdisciplinary topics. Okay. So there's very much scope for it. Yeah.
Okay. So let's hope that it will change towards that direction.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, it's been great to speak to you.
Yeah, likewise. I had fun.
Yes. And well, thank you for taking the time.
I would also be keen to read the outcome of your research. If you ever publish a paper out of it or something, or a thesis, please feel free to share with me.
Yes, I will. I think I'm aiming at writing a paper about it. I'm still doing some interviews, so it will take some time maybe, but I will share it with you for sure when I have it.
Excellent. Great.
Yes.
Well, all the best to you for your research.
Thank you. To you too. And thank you very much.